that this is session number 4 of Discovering the Essence of Nonviolent Communication, an open-hearted practice group with Jim and Jori Manske, and I'll turn it to you.
Thank you, Martha. I really appreciate your help. Does anybody have any questions for Martha before we get started? If you do, you can just raise your hand. You can use the electronic hand. Some of you may actually have a button on the bottom of your screen that says raise hand. And some of you might just use the reaction button like maybe Cecilia just did. Go ahead, Cecilia.
Thank you, Jim and Jori. Good to see you. Thank you, Martha, so much for all the work you have been doing. I am one of these people that go through the recordings.
Whoops.
I appreciate that. I see everything there, the handouts and everything. I was wondering, is there a way that you can name the sessions instead of 1, 2, 3, and 4, like the name, like today's feelings and last time? Because sometimes it's just hard for me to look for the recording through the date and the number of the session. So if that's possible, that would be really helpful for me. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I love that idea that people would have a choice to find the topics that really light them up or stimulate.
Yeah, see that Martha loves the idea. All right, great. All right, anything else before we get started? So let me give you a little overview, okay, especially if this is your first time here. Jori and I are certified trainers in nonviolent communication, and we've been doing this work since we became certified in 2003, which is 21 years ago.
Oh my gosh. We've come a long way. We still like each other too. We've been married longer than that.
Yeah. And we've been doing a practice group every week since 2001. We met Marshall Rosenberg in 2000 and toward the end of the year, November. And we got so excited, we just started our first practice group just about a month or two later and started attending practice groups. And we became convinced, I can only speak for myself, but Jori's been here every week pretty much for more than 20 years, that a practice group, a weekly practice group, is an accelerator to integrating nonviolent communication. And over the years, we've developed a kind of a pattern that seems to be very helpful for accelerating the accelerator. And it's composed really of 3 different parts, these 3 different parts of nonviolent communication. One, a chance to practice self-empathy or self-connection or self-compassion, just using nonviolent communication with yourself, which we'll do in just a moment. And then there's opportunities in small groups and in the large group, but most of the opportunities in the small group to practice honesty, the speaking part of NVC, and empathy, which is the listening part of NVC. And so when we go to these various different options, we'll try to mark the distinction between each piece and give you some suggestions on how to get the most out of how to practice in these 3 different ways.
And you might notice that some people have an equal sign before their name. Did you mention that? Oh, you did. Okay.
Yeah, which just means you don't want to be in one of those small groups. Okay, so let's just start with a self-connection exercise. And the self-connection exercise today will be a little bit of a review of what we've done the last 3 weeks to kind of set the table for what we're going to work on today, and to help people who might have missed one of the weeks or maybe all the weeks to just be a little bit more caught up with us. So just first begin by noticing that you're present. I mean, if you can hear the sound of my voice, that's proof that you're present. If you can see the screen that you're looking at the class on, you're present. So presence isn't some kind of extraordinary state that we're all trying to attain. It's actually our natural state is to be present. It's the ground of our experience. So just notice and enjoy presence. And as you notice presence, it opens up, for me, a sense of possibility. Now what do I want to be present to? It seems as if I have a choice about what I want to be present to. And so let's look at some of the things that nonviolent communication gives us as options of what to be present to. And so first, this idea of observing. And we human beings, most of us, not all of us, but most human beings lead with our eyes. There's a huge amount of our brain that's developed to processing optical information, and it's where we kind of live our lives optically. Even someone who is sightless and learns Braille, the Braille that they're learning is processed in the optic part of their brain. So it's really deep in us, this optic, this piece of being optic. And so this is seeing. So just let yourself see. Just first become present, and then just allow your eyes to go wherever they want to go. Just relax your neck, relax any sense of resistance, and just look around. And while you're looking around, notice that you can also become aware of sounds. Clearly, you can hear the sound of my voice when I'm quiet. See what other sounds you notice as you look around. So now you're present, seeing, hearing, and add texture. Maybe notice where your hands are, what they're touching, or how your feet feel inside your socks or shoes or on the floor, or how the clothing that you're wearing is touching your body. Maybe how one part of your body is touching another part. Continue to look around, listen, and notice texture. And then notice what's going on with taste. Even though you're not eating something, once I point to taste, you become aware of the perceptions of taste in your mouth. Maybe there's a little leftover tea or coffee or something else that you just recently eaten. And finally, in terms of perception, notice aromas or odors in your environment. So you got these 5 things going on every moment of your presence. And yet most of what's going on with those 5 senses is likely below your level of conscious awareness. But that's why you have such a big brain. Your big brain is tracking what you see, smell, hear, taste, and touch, and scanning for threats and opportunities. So we're constantly looking for, are we safe? So just check. Just ask yourself in this moment, are you safe? And if you're not, then please leave the call and go find a safe place to be and join us another time.
Mhm.
But if you're remaining with us, just enjoy that you are safe right now. Safety creates an atmosphere, the possibility for learning. And so your brain's scanning for threats. So you can relax and know that if a saber-toothed tiger were to suddenly come into your camp here, your brain would let you know and you could attend to it. So you can focus on learning or whatever else you would like to focus on other than safety. So that's the opportunities. Your brain's also scanning for opportunities. Opportunities to what? To make your life more wonderful. To enhance your experience of being human. There's one other way we can observe. So I invite you, if you're comfortable doing so, to just close your eyes. This turns off most of the visual cortex. So it opens up the possibility to increase awareness of the other four senses, but also to support you in noticing thinking. Because we can become observers of our own thoughts. So for many of us, but not all of us, you may have a voice in your head. You can listen to that, observe that. Some of us, but not all of us, can also make images. So for example, if I were to say, do you remember the first car that you can ever remember riding in? You probably can make an image of that. Not everybody can do that, but a lot of people can. That's another kind of thought. And it's also a memory. We have this inner voice. We have memories. We have images. And learning to observe these can really support self-connection. So just be quiet for about 1 minute while you play with these different channels of observing. So you might just look around or listen or bounce back and forth between a few of these channels. Now I invite you into a special kind of thinking before we transition to small groups. And that's to consider your intention. What's your intention for being here? Another way of looking at it might be, what are your hopes for being here? Or if you want to use NVC language, you might say, what needs am I hoping to meet by being here? And then notice if there's any requests that come up for how you might get those needs met. So then just rest for a moment while Martha prepares our groups. If your eyes have been closed and you're ready to open them, you can. If you'd rather keep them closed and just rest, that's also fine. We're going to go to small groups for 12 minutes. There'll be 1 minute at the end for you to finish up your conversation. And so what do you do in the small group? Well, I suggest what we found has worked over the years is you just start by introducing yourself and maybe where you're from. So I'm Jim and I live in Maui.
I'm Jori. I live in Maui also.
Yeah, and you kind of go around and just hear from everybody. Just get a chance of speaking in the group and saying where you're from. And then maybe do a second round. What did you think about that exercise? And then just say whatever here in the non-group group.
I don't see Genesis. Oh,
If you have anything you'd like to say here. Hi, Genesis. It's been a long time. I'm glad to see you here. I don't know if you're available to say hello, but Genesis is our colleague here in Hawaii. Hi, Genesis.
Hi, Genesis.
Yeah, I've been in meetings all day. I'm not feeling very social right now, but good to see you again. And just wanted to see what was going on through the NVC Academy and how that works.
Yeah, thanks for
Yeah.
coming. You're on my list every day. I think today I'm going to find the time to to call Genesis and check in with you and your sweetheart and see if we can get together soon and say hello.
Yeah, it would be great to get together again. Just getting myself at this point again too busy, and so trying to figure out how to manage that balance.
Me too. Ever since we got home, it's like I feel like we hit the ground running.
Right.
And I didn't have my energy totally here when we first arrived back. I got sick in Tucson, and wasn't COVID, but it sure felt like COVID. And although I went and got the PRC or whatever that's other test is called, PCR,
Yeah.
and it was allegedly not COVID, but both of us got
Yeah, we
pretty
went
sick.
down for the count.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's bad. I don't like being sick. It's not fun at all.
It's not fun. And then it just takes, now that we're as old as we are, it just takes longer to recover from these things. So
Yes.
I'm very, very grateful to I feel like I can walk up to the mailbox and keep my energy.
Yeah. Well, I think you have 3 people from our organization on this call: Christina De Leon and Anaya, one of our newer people, and maybe Sarah. Anaya Roskin and Sarah Menzies are on this call, I believe. I only saw Christina, but there's 100 people, so I couldn't survey them all quick enough. But
yeah, great. Well, I'm really glad that they came. That's super.
yeah, well, hopefully they'll learn some more NVC from a great set of teachers, you folks. So
Yeah, thank you.
Well, I love all the work that you're doing. Thank you.
Yeah, Genesis is doing some very inspiring work here in Maui, and since Jori and I don't do much work here in Maui, or actually we don't do any work here other than sit here in front of Zoom and talk to people all around the world.
right.
I'm really grateful that you're here to support people with
Yeah.
ways that you do.
Yeah, we do what we can. We're finally getting a meeting with the new juvenile prosecutor in a couple of weeks. After working on that, like there was a different, there was like 3 or 4 juvenile prosecutors now, and now we have a new one who might stay for a while. So she's going to meet with us, and sounds like she's interested in restorative justice. So that's encouraging. It's been years, we've been trying to do this. So
I know every time you make some progress with one leader, then they leave or get promoted or whatever, and you start all over again. That's the challenge of working with bureaucracies.
Yeah.
It so is.
Yeah.
But
Well,
anyway,
thanks for what you're doing.
we continue to work at it. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for all the love and the energy that you put into supporting nonviolence here in Maui.
Yeah, thank you as well. Thank you for that compliment. Do what I can.
Yeah.
And just check in with anybody else who's in here too, if you want to say anything, while we wait for
There's about
another
5
5 or
minutes
6
left. Hey,
minutes.
Salil.
Hi, Jim.
Salil.
How are you guys?
We're doing great. At least I am. And I think Jori is. I look at the big smile on her face and
Yeah,
feel the
nice to
energy.
see you.
Yeah.
I feel a little tired today, but still I'm here and glad to be here.
And
Mhm.
you, how are you this morning?
I'm good. I just, it's too early in the morning, so I was like, my wife was around and she was like, so I didn't want to join a call and speak up, but now she's left the room, so it's maybe,
Great.
yeah.
And remind me where in India you live?
I live in Hyderabad. It's a
Ah.
city in the south, north
Ah.
of Bangalore, yeah.
Ah,
Cool. And
nice and warm.
yeah.
Yes, it's very hot now.
And did you go to the last IIT that was in India?
No, I didn't, because I'd just been to Bali IIT and then I thought it was too soon.
Yeah, that's what
And I had some things to do too also at the same time.
that makes sense to me.
Yeah. I saw Suleiman here somewhere, and then he wasn't there. Maybe he's gone to a breakout room.
Yeah, quite a few people started joining us
Mm,
after the last India IIT. And you
Yeah.
probably see some names today from the Bali IIT. There's some
yes.
folks here from that. And so it's really
Yeah.
sweet to have that growing community.
Mm.
Oh, I see.
Asmita,
Asmita.
how are you tonight?
Hi.
Hi, good morning. I'm sorry, good evening.
Good morning.
No, it's midday for us. We're not quite after. We're in the middle of the afternoon.
Good
Yeah,
afternoon.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm joining after a long time. Very excited to be here.
I'm glad that you're here. Welcome.
Yeah. And where are you? You said? I'm sorry.
Mumbai, India.
Mumbai. Yes. Boy, it's been years since we've been there.
I've never been.
Mumbai?
No,
Didn't we go to Mumbai?
that was before Jim when you
Mm,
were in India.
Ah,
On
yeah.
our trip to India,
That was a long time ago. We've been together for what, 44 years?
yes, so a long time ago. When we were
I
there,
was a Jain nun, actually, and that's one of the places where I went. Yeah.
yeah, when we were there, we went to Oroville
Mhm,
and Jaipur and Pune.
mhm.
Yeah, those are the three places that we.
Maybe it's time for you to plan a visit then.
Well, maybe. I'll give it a big M, maybe. We've been invited. In fact, I haven't told you this yet, but we've been invited to the IIT in January of 2026. It's really hard for me to consider January 2026.
I know.
It's like 2 digits away if we're from 24, and I don't know that I've ever planned that far in advance. So I haven't said either yes or no yet, but I guess
We'll talk about
we'll
it.
talk about it. Yeah. Yeah, it's a long schlep for us. Although I did look, because I am curious, I did look, and we can break it up like on our last trip to Bali.
Mhm.
We can break it up by going to Japan and then going on. So it'd be about the same as last night.
Yeah, that's what we've always done, and that's a really important part. If we just fly to another place that's that different in terms of timing, it takes us days to adapt. But if we do it little by little, that's what we found worked best.
Yeah.
Oh, so we might see you. We'll
And
see you at
as much as I'd love to go to India, and of course, India is a vast country, and we only saw 1/10 of 1% of 1% of it.
even though we were there so many times.
I've only been there once,
Only once you were there?
and you've been
Oh,
there twice.
okay. I thought
And
we were there
but
together.
there's so many other cool places. Like, I'd like to go back to Mexico. It's so much closer, for example.
Mm,
And we now have a lot of friends that live down near San Miguel Allende, and we've made NVC friends over the years. And now how many certified trainers do we have in Mexico now, Martha?
do you know?
Around, yes, I know, like 12.
Wow, that's
Well,
fantastic.
Wow.
That's really
Mhm.
fantastic.
Mhm.
Long way. That's great.
And we have one in San Miguel de Allende.
Ah,
Mhm.
neat. Well, there's a town not too far from there called Ajijic. You know that town? Ajijic?
I don't think so.
It's-
Ajijic?
Yeah, I think that's it.
Uh-huh.
And
But I have heard,
That's our friend Andreas, right?
Right. It's Andres.
Jim and Jori, you met Andreas in February 2019.
Yes, cool.
Oh, you know Andres, right? He's a certified trainer now.
And
Yeah.
very beautiful. That's right.
Mhm.
Okay, so everybody will be back in about 30 seconds.
Some of them are already coming back. It's so hard not to press that button, huh?
And sometimes folks are just done, I imagine.
Yeah, maybe. Well, welcome back already. And let's see.
We're about to have the big Zoom in 15 seconds.
Well, you come back early, then we get to see you most of the time we're talking. The rest of them end up on another page. Uh-huh.
Welcome back, everybody. So as we reconfigure, as we come back into this large group, I invite you just to close your eyes for just a few seconds. Rest your brain.
Mm.
Notice presence. Awaken your observing. And then the invitation to hear from a few of you, if you would like, to share what your experience is like so far. If there's anybody who would like to share, just raise your electronic hand, and we'd love to hear your voice about how you are right now. Especially if there's something alive in you about the small group and the exercise, or if you have a breakthrough about your NVC experience that you'd like to share with us over the last week. So take a moment and check in and see if you'd like to say something here in the large group. Saud?
You're muted, yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Just gonna take a couple of breaths. My heart's beating really fast. So in my understanding, safety is a gradient, and collectively, including myself, there's a high degree of unsafety today that we live in. And as I have been able to understand and perceive, we live in a collective we live in collective functional freeze. So there's a disconnect between, like, largely we end up living up here instead of an integrated entirety. So naming the collective unsafety that is present in the now, in me and in everyone, feels so important to me. Feels like unless that base is not recognized, I fear that I'll be living in this bubble of, and this group will become a bubble of, this is safe. And my fear is I'm just going to pause and see how that lands and what comes up.
Well, I'm
in
touched.
response.
I'm touched by your honesty, Saud, and by there's a resonance in me. Often when I talk about safety, I'll put the adverb relatively in front of it. We're relatively safe. And in this moment, as far as I can tell, there's no saber-tooth tigers outside my door, and yet there are threats. There are existential threats that we all face, and this will become especially significant and important for us to be with the longer that we practice NVC and move and grow into the skill of mourning. Because being with that what you're naming, so is actually the motivator to make things more safe for everybody. And I share what I catch in you is just a deep, unnameable sadness about how unsafe so many of our brothers and sisters are. And so I just want to check in with you and see if I caught the essence of what you wanted to share.
Some of it, yes, and there's also healthy anger, which wants to stand up for what's life affirming and stand up for humanity and myself and everyone.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and yeah, I'll just, I think I feel complete for now. There's more, but yeah, I feel complete for now.
We could have a whole group just about the topic that you raised, for sure. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
And I think it's really important that you name it, especially in a class about feelings, that we honor and name whatever feelings that are alive in us, including fear and the life-serving function of fear and anger. Diana, and then Monica.
Hi. I shared with my group that one of the big reasons I'm interested in working with NVC, because I'm brand new, was to be able to identify my needs more easily and to be able to express that. And then when we came out, I noticed that I felt kind of teary. And that is because one person was in India and one person was in Japan. And after we came out, I realized actually my even bigger reason for being here is just wanting the whole world to learn this. And here we are in this group of people from all over the world. And it just really touched me. So I was happy to see that, be with them.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I share your dream that everybody who wants to have access to NVC have easy access. That everyone who wants to learn NVC have a chance to experience it. Monica?
Thank you. Well, regarding your last statement, thank you so much to you and the whole team that are putting this together. One of the things that came up in our small group was in my experience of the guided meditation that you do, it was interesting to move through all the different senses and look into how my mind works. You know, am I more visual, or do I have more voices, or am I more of a conceptual person? And I started noticing that there was a little bit of everything. But then in our conversation, we saw that there were some things that were more dominant than others. For some people, there were more voices. Sometimes the voices were like different types of voices. For some people, more visual. So I was just really, really enjoying the experience of being guided through the different sensory aspects. And then also our conversation and our exchange that for me was revealing in that we have so much in common, but at the same time, very, very unique ways of perceiving. So I'm really appreciating that insight.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Monica. Let's take a moment to take that in. And Brahma?
Good evening, and I apologize for being 10 minutes late. I was finishing my evening class, and my longing to be in the community was so strong. I teach Mondays and Wednesdays in the evening, and the longing was, how do I make this happen? And guess what? The classes are going to be from on Tuesdays and Wednesdays for the quarter, because my students are pharmacy interns, and one is like, just can't make it on Mondays. And I'm like, can we make it on Tuesdays and Wednesdays? Is it too tough back to back? And they're like, no, this is perfect. And I'm just like, when the heart is longing, somehow the planets align.
We call it perfection unfolds.
So I'm very grateful to be here. And I have to admit, as I came in, I was very much not in my being. I was not present. I'm like, and then I'm just like, it's going to work out. And as I listened to my sisters in the breakout room, I was reminded of Gautam Buddha's statement, which says that all human beings are filled with suffering. I said to myself, only the masks we wear are different. Our stories and scenarios are different. And one of the sisters said, I'm from Singapore, and it just feels like, another sister said, I can talk to all of you, even though we've never met before. And I'm just so grateful for this forum. So thank you, Jim and Jori. My heart is filled with gratitude. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I feel like one of the luckiest people on the planet to be able to be with you all every week.
Yeah.
To have this the gift of your presence in this community.
Yeah, and I just want to add that there's a certain quality of inspiration when you come here and are part of the vision we have for the world we would like everyone to live in. So thank you.
And we'll finish up this round with Ellen.
Thank you, Jim and Jori. In the small group conversation, I perceived some kind of confusion among the small group members about the meaning of the instruction. If you don't feel safe, then you can go somewhere else. And then if you stay here, then you feel safe. So there are some interpretations, different interpretations among the members of my small group. One becomes sad because I guess that he perceived that this means that if you are not feeling safe, then you are not meant to be here, something like that. While I understood that as if you stay here, then it means you feel safe here. If you don't feel safe here, then you are not forced to stay here. So I'm going to request for clarity about that instruction. What's the meaning of that instruction? And I hope that might be helpful for anyone that might think, and it makes sadness comes up for them. Thank you.
Yeah, I can understand how that might sound like a very strange thing to hear. And what we're pointing to with that is that our safety is a very high priority, and that we clarify our safety and we take steps to keep ourselves safe and to stay awake to that. Do you want to add anything?
And sorry to interrupt. It seems that your voice, Jim and Jori, is a little slow or soft. Can you erase the volume?
I will see. I've got the,
We can move closer to the mic. Is that helpful?
I see the heads that says yes.
okay, good.
Thank you.
Try to remember
And
to
thank you for those who let us know about that.
Yeah,
Good to know.
Yeah, so here's why I say the thing about safety, or relative safety, is that NVC is often called the language of connection, or people will often frame nonviolent communication as that the purpose is to create a quality of connection that inspires compassionate giving and receiving. And what I notice in my own experience is if I'm not feeling safe, I don't want to connect. I want to flee. So there's something else going on, or I want to freeze. As Saud was talking about, that we live in this, maybe the state of unconscious collective freeze because of the various existential threats that face us. And I won't name all those threats, but you know what they are. And yet, I like noticing when any need is satisfied. And so even though there may be things going on in the world, like there could be a meteor racing towards the Earth right now that's about to crash in here, like in that movie we had come out a couple of years ago. Right now, I'm relatively safe. And I want to live and appreciate that safety, because from here, I can contribute. I can contribute to making life more wonderful, hopefully for all of you, and certainly for me, and maybe for you. So that's why I like to just underline any need that I notice that's satisfied.
Yeah, and there's another piece for me around the concept of should. You know, we should stay somewhere, we should be there, we shouldn't this, we shouldn't that. And what comes up for me around when you say that is for us to have the integrity in our relationship with ourselves, to prioritize our needs, particularly of safety.
Saud, and then we need to move into the rest of the content.
When, like right now, there's some fear, and let's say I feel maybe 5 on 10 when it comes to the degree of safety I'm experiencing. So where I'm coming from is largely a very mental space. I know when I feel safer, then I'm in touch with what I'm feeling, and it comes from deep within, and there's an integrated me that's speaking. As I'm speaking, I'm noticing I'm feeling safer. So that's also how safety shows up, or the lack of safety shows up in me and in others. Just wanted to name that.
Makes sense. Makes perfect sense to me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Really appreciating all of you who enriched our conversation today with your willingness to share. I wish we had some mechanism to hear all 110 voices, but we haven't figured that out yet. We'd be here all day if we heard from all of you, even though it'd probably be fun for me. So let's move into some content and some practice. I'm going to share my screen with you. And so if you're here for the first time, it might feel like you're coming into the middle of a movie. And in a way you are, because this is week 4 of a series that'll go all the way until the end of the year. But each class stands alone. So it's not necessary for you to have been here for the previous 3 classes to gain benefit. Each class has a different focus, and today's focus is on feelings awareness, which is one of the skills on the Pathways to Liberation matrix. And we simply when Jori and I and 2 other trainers, Jake and Jack, wrote this matrix back. It was published in 2010, So that's 14 years ago
Wow,
already.
time flies.
And this was the definition that we came up back then. It's pretty close to how I would define it now, but you know, I've grown and my awareness of feelings has grown, and you might have a different definition, but this is just the one that we came up with back then. Feelings awareness is the ability to identify and experience our physical sensations and emotions. And by the way, you'll get a copy of all these slides, so you don't need to spend a lot of time trying to take notes. You can just relax, and unless it helps you to take notes, to do that. But you'll get a chance to get all these slides in the classroom. And so all these skills, there's a natural progression of integration where we start with no awareness of feelings, and through becoming more and more capable, we eventually get integrated with all these skills. And there's a change in how we live our life based on it. And it's not necessarily, in my experience anyway, a linear or solid experience. I might be have a sense of being integrated with a particular skill like feelings awareness.
And you might lose it.
And then I just might go to sleep to it and suddenly become barely aware of having the skill, if at all. So give yourself permission to be anywhere on this scale at any moment with any of these skills.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of seeing these skills, is to be able to identify, where am I right now? Am I a little lost here? I can't quite figure out what to do, or I'm just at the point where I'm awakening to what is important here, and to that place of being grounded and capable.
So let's do a couple of takeaways from last week. We've already kind of covered this in the self-connection exercise, that when we're observing, we're focusing on the world, what we see, hear, smell, taste, and touch. And also we're focusing and our presence on the mind, noticing our thoughts. The fancy word for that is metacognition, being aware of our thoughts. Meta means aware, cognition meaning thought. So it's just noticing thoughts. This is a key for me. It's been one of the key pieces of my spiritual and emotional growth is noticing thoughts and the impact. And we're going to play with that today. Those of you who are on or contemplating the path to become certified trainers, we work with these things called key distinctions, which are the differences between different kinds of concepts. And in this case, we're focusing on the difference between a feeling and a thought. Often these key distinctions are phrased as one versus the other. And it sounds like there's a battle between them, that there's a fight, one's right and one's wrong, and one will win. And especially with this particular skill, it's a vis-a-vis. They're face-to-face, they're side by side. They both have utility. They both help us to be more fully human. But it's also important to keep them distinct. So feelings are of the body and thoughts are of the mind. And then there's a big word here, which we're not going to go into a lot today. But when I learned this big word, interoceptions, it really helped me to understand an important key distinction in NVC, that there are body states as well as emotion states that we're experiencing from moment to moment. But the main point is this one here, that they're signals, whether they're, however we're experiencing these feelings, they're signals that point to our needs. And so we've placed most of our attention in nonviolent communication on the need. And yet the signal is an important piece of it, because it helps as a pointer. Anything you want to add about that?
Nope.
Thoughts, on the other hand, are of the mind. So we already kind of mentioned that. It's about mental images, self-talk, memories, beliefs, etc.
We often call that being up in our head a bit.
And often in NVC land, there's something about making it wrong. And I don't want to make it wrong to have thoughts. I love to think. And Marshall was quite the thinker. He couldn't have written that book without doing a lot of thinking. And so, and he often, He described needs consciousness, which will be our focus next week, as a different kind of thinking. So there's nothing wrong with thinking. We just want to find the most life-supporting, life-affirming way to think that we can.
And to acknowledge our thoughts and be present to them as well. They're not owning what the world is, but at least it grounds us to this moment.
Then as we transition to this week's topic, which is what is a feeling? So let's focus on what specifically we're becoming aware of. So feelings are of the body, as we just mentioned. So just take a moment and reflect for, say, 3 minutes on, on what are the ingredients of the feelings that you're noticing right now. So you can do some, if you're a journaler or a note taker, then just take 3 minutes and write down what ingredients you notice in the feelings that you're having right now.
The emotional or the physical? Which are you asking?
Yes. Yeah. What are the ingredients of feelings? When you think of the word feeling and what you're feeling right now, what's that feeling made of? Would be another way of putting it. Just about 30 more seconds to finish up your reflections. So who's got an answer that you'd like to share? What are the ingredients of your feelings? We wanted to bake a cake called Your Feelings. What would be the ingredients? Yeah, Christina.
I have no idea if this is right, but I put emotion, body sensation, and trigger.
Emotion, body sensation, and trigger. Okay, thank you. I like those answers. Patty? Patty, if you're talking, we can't hear you yet.
Yeah, you're not unmuted.
I'm mute. Okay.
There you go.
I ended up coming from it from a different approach, which was how did I feel physically at the moment? And I used ease of breath, non-clenched, overall body at ease. But I will just throw one more thing out quickly. Then I was trying to think about, well, feeling, is that hot or cold? And the same thing in the way of emotion, is that agitated or distant? So I guess I'm realizing feeling, emotion, and how my physical body's feeling are different.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Those are both key ingredients in my experience. Anybody else have anything to add? If you don't talk, I will.
Your turn, honey.
Okay, then I'll share my screen. Oh, good. Thank you. Georg.
Well, I felt a little whimsical here. One is so the feelings I'm feeling, that makes an ingredient list, but also I think you wanted to know what the ingredients were that were at the source of those feelings. So for me, they were biological, my body sensations, and also psychologically, perhaps mentally prompted. So there was a variety. And then I thought, well, I'm not sure any of these are FDA approved, but I have them.
Yeah.
So with that little humor, I feel complete. Thank you for letting me share.
Yeah, you're welcome. And Linda?
I was thinking also I had some of those other ones down, but I was thinking maybe what we believe, stories we tell ourselves, circumstances, and habit, what our habit might be about, what we see or hear or
Yeah.
Taste, touch, smell. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, and we'll finish with Juliana. And actually, we'll finish
that
with
was
Salil.
Salil.
Go ahead, Juliana.
I just have energy in motion. Feelings are my energy in motion.
Energy in motion?
Through my body.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
And Salil?
For me, it was imagination and memory.
Imagination and memory, very important ingredients as well.
Thank you.
Okay, share my screen with you again. So I love one of the things I love about NVC is there's this attempt to be simple. Marshall got it down to 4 components and 3 parts. And so if I was to boil down my understanding of Marshall's concept of feelings, it's body states and emotion states. And so we'll explore a little bit more about what these 2 things mean. They are extremely related, but they may not be the same thing, but maybe they are. I'm constantly learning and updating my experience from moment to moment. Right now, it feels like 2 different ingredients in my cake. So what's going on? Well, there's this underlying presence. We're always present to something. This is something that we covered in the very first class. Even in deep sleep, we're present. Otherwise, we wouldn't wake up if the smoke alarm went off. There's this underlying consciousness. That's who we are. And it's always the background, the natural state of our experience. And then something happens. And we are awakened to observing. Without any training, we spent some time with our brand new baby grandchild, and it's very clear from we got to see her when she was less than a day old, or just at a day old. She was observing just fine, and she didn't go to any classes. Nobody taught her how to observe, but she was clearly observing. She was also clearly having sensations. She'd let us know when she was hungry or uncomfortable. And so, again, no training necessary for these basic skills. And maybe there's some unlearning that we're doing, trying to get out of our own way with these skills. But let's practice. Don't take my word for it. Think of an ordinary obligation that you have. For example, I must arrive at work on time. And I'll put it into the chat for those of you who can't see the screen.
So that's just an example. Find your own example that resonates for you.
And make it an ordinary obligation, not something that you're in therapy about. Keep it really kind of simple, low key, something that you can support your focus for the rest of the class. And then write it down as a thought. So the thought might have the form, I should arrive at work on time.
Are we on the correct slide?
I think so. It should say, what do you guys see?
Practice one.
Feelings awareness is what it says right now.
Oh,
Let's see
okay.
here.
No, so
Thank you for checking. Should be this one here. That look different?
Yes, thank you.
thank you for letting us know.
So where we are is write it down as a thought. I should arrive at work on time would be the thought.
There you go. Seems the same thing,
Then once you have it written down, it should be very brief, 10 words or less probably. Repeat it to yourself several times and notice how your body is reacting to the thought. Repeat it to yourself several times and notice how your body is reacting to the thought. First, notice. Just be as best you can, focusing on how your body responds to this thought. And then name and write down what you notice. If you want to put the answers to your in the chat, that might be inspiring for others. Like someone wrote, tense, tight breath, constricted shoulders, rushed, overwhelmed, scared, clenched. Tension and a sigh, shallow breathing, glazed eyes, resistance, heart feels squeezed. A tightness in the stomach, rumbling.
So write down what it is for you.
Then just take 1 minute here to write down any reflections you have. What's your takeaway from this exercise? I love it when people are putting their takeaways in the chat. That can be inspiring for others. We'll go on to the next practice, which is building on this one. We're going to add some suffering.
Oh, boy.
What happens if you don't arrive at work? What's behind the should? If I don't arrive at work, what's the worst thing that could happen? Or some consequence, some punishment. What's motivating that should thought? And then again, repeat the thought to yourself and notice how your body reacts. Just be with what you notice. Take the time to let yourself be a human being that feels feelings. And if it feels too intense, then let it go. Think about something you enjoy instead. No shoulds about this exercise. Again, the exercise is to first notice the effect of the thought. Be with it. And then name it. Name what your experience is. Yeah.
I see shame, judged, self-judgment, not being committed, fear, abandonment, failure.
Oh, that's interesting. The body reaction went away because I realized the fear was not based on reality. So you got an insight.
Ah. Anxiety.
And fear. Yeah.
Loss.
So we're building the building blocks for self-empathy here. Noticing our emotional experience, allowing it to be, and naming it. Let's go on to the third exercise. It's again that we're extending from the last one. We're going to do some NVC. We're going to do some translation of this. And we're just going to change the should to a preference. It's a kind of a request to have a preference. Marshall often used the words interchangeably. And we're going to add the need. So we're going to use that first thought as the template or the basis, and then we're going to
Fill in the blank.
NVC-ify it. I prefer to, whatever your observation is, because what is important to you? So for me, it would be, although I don't really consider this practice group work, it's play for me, but we'll use it as the example. I prefer to get to the practice group on time because connection and integrity are important to me. It's something also about trust. What's it about for you? Yeah, Anne writes, I want to do my back exercise at least every other day because I value physical well-being. I prefer to clean the kitchen before I go to bed because it'll meet my need for order and ease when I wake up. And again, repeat this thought to yourself and attune to your body.
What it means is just notice how you feel when you say that to yourself. You can say it a couple times and then just be quiet and notice your body.
Hmm? And as you perhaps read and empathize with other people's preferences, you can also notice how that affects you.
There you go.
Yeah, that's growth. That's growth.
Yes.
Great gift to yourself too.
I love machines that have reset buttons. I kind of wish I had one right here.
I know. I wish I had. He did too. I can reset.
Ah.
Anybody here in the equal sign group have anything you'd like to share? We're happy to hear it.
How many minutes is left?
Let's see here. We got about 2
No,
minutes. 2
okay.
minutes.
Don't all shout at once.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's not
In
required.
preparing for the class,
Here comes Salil. He was just about to say
we got to say
something.
something, Salil? Go ahead.
Yeah. So I just had difficulty in when you said what are the takeaway, and because I know it was meant to be addressing our attention towards the need, unmet need. So I just want to put it out there that I had difficulty in finding a need that was. So I'm not sure whether my understanding was correct.
Well, I like that you're open to finding out. And I certainly wouldn't want to impose my answer on yours. I think the takeaway I was looking for is anything that you learned from the relationship between how we talk to ourselves and our emotional experience.
Okay.
Or maybe even that there just is a relationship. Like somebody wrote in the chat, she said, see if I can find it again.
Yeah, and consider the word effect. I mean, also.
Somebody
just in
said
relationship.
something like, it was the woman from Maui here. Anyway, she said something like, when she started calling it a preference, she had a different emotional experience than when she had it as a should.
Makes sense.
That there was a kind of an emotional liberation. Those are my words, not her words. That's my takeaway, is how I talk to myself matters. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I think people are coming back now.
Yep.
Not quite everybody yet. Here they come. All right. So let's hear some of these takeaways. What are you taking away from the practice? About how we talk to ourselves. Again, just use your electronic hand if you'd like to be heard. If you haven't spoken yet, we'd love to hear your voice. And even if you have spoken, we love to hear your voice. So Joyce, and then Pallavi.
And then Aparna.
Yeah, go ahead, Joyce.
And then Dean.
Oh, it was just so, it was quite revealing to find that choice gave so much freedom. And we were talking about exploring what's underneath, why we do things, what our values are, what our needs are, and why we respond a certain way, and then being able to change how we, I don't know, it was something quite freeing and powerful to come to, and to make a change in how we responded to, instead of I have to, I choose to. That was just so powerful. That's all I think that's all I have to share.
It's an important piece of liberation is what I call it. Yes.
Yeah, beautiful. Thanks, Joyce.
Yeah.
And Pallavi? Sorry.
Yes. No, that's all right. Yeah, I think once I realized the need word, I'm realizing there was so much of self-blame for the strategy. I should be doing this. But when I went back to the need, is it really meeting that need? Perhaps something else, that has just brought in a bit of joy in me.
Nice. Like
Thank you.
wake up to something.
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks. Aparna?
I am from Bangalore, India. I wanted to say how powerful this exercise was for me in terms of insight. I realized that when I thought of the consequence, it took me to a limiting belief about myself. And that made me really sad. So connecting to your last session, I wanted to say that I realized my mind is making the meaning or adding meaning to a situation that doesn't need to be made meaning of. I'm imputing a lot of meaning to it unnecessarily, whereas I could just see it for what it is. And I could then focus on my needs instead and stay with my needs, which would be more efficient for me and make me calmer and would allow me to actually do something about it. If I stay with my limiting belief about myself, then I might be just frozen. My fear or, whatever. So, yeah.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Welcome to the liberation.
Yeah, I really enjoy savoring that insight.
Yeah.
Thanks. And Dean?
Hi, thank you. I found it was very empowering to be able to make the switch from feeling like maybe a bit of a victim, like no choice, and just with reframing and looking at what I'm gaining out of it, what needs are being met, rather than what am I losing, that it totally shifted me and my perspective to reframe it to a position of agency and choice. And this is what I want. And it was very profound that way. And that can be applied in any situation. Whenever I'm feeling like I'm regretting, an agreement or a choice, that I can reframe it to, well, this is I chose this because I want this.
Exactly.
Very powerful.
Very powerful.
Yeah, celebrating your liberation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and I you know, it was when I was a young parent, I didn't have NVC. I wish I would have. We had something similar eventually, but called parent effectiveness training. But I just remember having this kind of an insight. At some point, it came to me. I was like doing something disgusting. Probably not changing a diaper, but dealing with the aftermath of changed diapers, like dealing with the diaper pail or whatever it was. And it was like, oh man, what you know, all these kind of feelings of disgust and hatred even of it. And then realizing the why that I was doing this was to support my sweetheart, to support my new baby, to support health and well-being. And suddenly it was still disgusting, but there was a quality of joy to doing it.
Yeah.
So I think this is what Marshall Rosenberg was pointing to when he said, don't do it if it isn't play. This is how we can turn anything into play, by connecting to the good reason that we're doing it. Thanks, Dean.
Thank you.
Is it Ania or Anya?
Ania?
Hi there. It's Anaya.
Anaya. Okay.
Aw.
Choice number 3, Anaya.
I'm used to it. So it was interesting for me because I accidentally didn't follow directions that well. You said pick a really simple little thing, and my brain did not. My brain went to a real live issue that's kind of a thing in my life that has to do with family. And so there's emotion. And I struggled because I'm like, this isn't, I don't get a choice, this thing. This is a need. I need to do this. And it was great because my partner was able, after I shared some, and they were great, really let me express my feelings. And the question that she said is, well, you ask yourself, what am I doing this for? Which of course, this has to do with the care of my mother. And so it was such an instant shift because I was struggling with self-need and other people's needs, right? It wasn't a question of should, I have to. So it was really great. And I really appreciated my partners, and that simple statement of what am I doing this for? Just totally changed my heart space, because this is my mom and I love her to the moon and back and would do anything. So it was just more of an emotional shift, interestingly, than anything else. Nothing's changed. It's still on my plate, but I feel a little shift in how I hold it and the lens I look at it for myself. So thank you to my group, and thank you for the exercise. I really appreciated it.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
I'm glad it
Yeah.
supported you in finding, finding this love, which is really the motivator for why you do what you do, and just really taking it in and allowing yourself to savor that need. Yeah. To the moon and beyond.
And I'm celebrating that, actually, I think with you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank
and
you.
Asmita?
Yeah, so my heart is really beating fast as I'm speaking in this forum. So for me, I think there was this realization of a belief system of how much I value being of utility and contributing. And as a result, I kind of blame myself when I'm not of use, or I'm wasting time, or I'm doing something that I was supposed to do, which I haven't done. And it just helped me realize that the doing matters so much to me, just being of use and that whole utilitarian thing. And sometimes in that process, I can forego the being part of it. And I only feel valued and mattered when I'm doing something. So what came up for me was I can still be worthy, and I can still be loved even if I'm not tangibly doing some things. And maybe that is something that I'll have to cultivate for myself.
Beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
Beautiful.
Oh.
That's so deep and rich.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Tanya?
I just Asmita just really touched my heart, and I just wanted to say that. And I just heard the tragedy of this cultural value of production at the cost of everything. That it's a cultural value in the US, it's a cultural value in a lot of places that I must be producing. I must be doing it at the cost of everything else.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. That must, I think what you're pointing to is the have to that we live, the have to. That
I
we
have to this, yeah. I have to be a productive citizen at all times.
Yeah.
In really deconstructing that value is so liberating, and I'm so grateful to Marshall for
Yeah.
pointing it out in such, very basic ways. Write down everything you have to do, change it to I choose to, and I choose to because I want. I mean, it's just such a just similar. And I love that in this exercise, to do it wholeheartedly and to really feel the discontent and of the discontent in our bodies, how our bodies just kind of hunch up and tense up against must and have to. And then just the flowering of, oh, I choose. It's just like flowering. It's just like opening up like a flower. I choose it. I choose it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I just want to say one thing about that should stuff, that the inevitable consequence of shoulding on yourself like that is resentment. And the inevitable consequence of resentment is violence.
Rebellion or, yeah.
And so if we can start to take care of this stuff earlier in the process and either choose to because it meets a need or choose not to because we want to meet other needs, then the less we're going to reduce violence on the planet tremendously.
Mhm.
Yeah. Thank you, Tanya.
you.
And Sarah Joy?
I just wanted to add one piece to it that I don't think has been brought up yet, and that is when I'm saying should so many times, each time I do, I feel more constricted and breathing less and maybe self-talk or whatever, more self-talk. And then when I change the wording a little bit and I say prefer or I choose, I suddenly create more space in myself. And what can I fill that space with? I can fill it with some self-compassion, which then allows me to to see how hard this is for me, but not to be hard on myself because of that. And then it allows me to have that space for more possibility and more strategies, and a request to myself to do it, like start earlier to do that. If you want to get some sleep, have dinner earlier, and then, just change my time, just my thinking around a little bit around it, and it becomes a little easier. And then find the patterns of repeat, a couple of good nights of sleep and how good that feels, and to keep that in mind, and then not be so down on myself when I, just get a couple hours and not getting.
Beautiful,
Yeah,
beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you for caring for yourself now in this way.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I'm tempted just to start talking, but instead I'm just going to finish up the slideshow just so you have some food for thought for, it should say now, ingredients of feelings on your screen. So this is to help you to fine tune your awareness of sensations and emotions over the coming week. So you can think of a couple of different continuums. One is a continuum of pain and pleasure. And so there's very good evidence that all living beings, perhaps even plants and mushrooms, have the experience of pain and pleasure. And it's on a continuum. So just if that's all you did all week is just notice and name pain and pleasure, that's a big step towards having more awareness of feelings. So that's one important continuum. Another one is the continuum of arousal. Arousal is how excited we are, emotionally excited. And we can have low arousal or we can have high arousal. So like every night about, 9 o'clock, I start noticing my arousal level plummeting. And so this is like a big signal that it's time to start getting ready for bed and going through my bedtime routines. And then when I wake up in the morning, my arousal is at probably pretty close to its peak, about a half an hour to an hour after I wake up. I'm at very high arousal. So just noticing, and then it's a cycle all day, right? Right after lunch, usually I crash a little bit in arousal and I want to take a nap or just lay down and close my eyes. So those are two continuums that you can play with, either one or both. And then, did you want to say something about that?
No.
And so then you can start identifying some emotional experiences that you have in these different quadrants. So when you have a high level of pain and a high level of upset, of arousal, high pain, high arousal, that's when you're really upset, distressed, angry, fearful, full of rage, righteously indignant. When you're at the pain end of the spectrum. When you're at the pleasure end of the spectrum, you're feeling elated, thrilled, super happy to be alive, and so forth. And then as you lower down on the continuum of arousal, it might go from miserable to gratified or pleased. And at the low level of arousal, you might notice sensations and emotions of lethargy or depression, or as you move towards pleasure, serenity and calm. And as we continue our exploration over the coming weeks, I want to see if we can find more choice about how we can use our presence and our focus and the space that we give ourselves to live on that right-hand side of the grid, not to dismiss the left. It's hugely important. But in moments when there's choice and resourcefulness, hey, I want to kind of go towards gratitude, awe, hope, love, and so forth. And then to use the energy that I create on the right-hand side of the spectrum to then address the unmet needs that are on the left-hand side. Those feelings are emerging because of unmet needs. And so that's what we're going to really start focusing on next week is, okay, now we know that feelings are signals. Signals about what? Signals about the state of our needs. Okay, so now we're going to need some vocabulary to start talking about our needs. And then to begin to develop strategies to take our understanding of feelings and needs and then start doing work on ourselves and our relationships and our systems to make life more wonderful for everybody. And so these first three skills that we've been working on, presence, observing, and feelings awareness are like the foundation, the cornerstone, and the first layers of bricks on this thing that we're constructing called, I don't know what it's called, Marshall called it a life-serving system that we build first within ourselves. So that's what we're working on, is building this life-serving system within ourselves. And we'll continue that next week. You'll get, if you visit our classroom, you'll be able to get access to this and previous recordings, as well as the slideshows of the previous classes, as well as any other handouts. And some of the handouts that are already in there are feelings and needs sheets. And we'll be using those next week. So if you want to print them out, if you have a printer and you like printing things, you can print them out and put them on your refrigerator. That's what we did when we first started learning NVC. In fact, it's still on the refrigerator 24 years later. And so it's just nice to have these little reminders to shift our consciousness out of our old habits of thinking about who's right and who's wrong and who deserves to be punished and so forth. Instead, start thinking about who needs what. So speaking of who needs what, I wonder how you are right now after having our time together today.
Actually, I'm delighted. The level of depth that we all had during this time is so rich for me. This is the world I want to live in, both the world of being more conscious of what we studied today and also that world of connection that I sense here. So thank you all for joining us. So what a gift you are. And I assume you'll be a gift out in the world as you move through these stages and awarenesses. So pay it forward. I bet you will.
Yeah, thanks. And Martha, you've been here as our mostly silent helper in the background. I wonder if there's anything that you would like to share about how you are in this moment.
Oh, you have a hand up too.
Yeah.
I'm super happy and inspired. Listen about everyone's liberation. That is a part that I love when I discover that I can choose and I can decide to do what I thought I had to do. I don't have to do, I can decide. So I very, very happy to hear all the liberations.
Wonderful. Thank you.
And Jeannie?
Yeah, I never know when is the right time to say this, but in NVC, we have this saying, anything worth doing is worth doing poorly. And, that's great for motivation and progress, movement, that sort of thing. But I want to thank you for not following that in your development of the matrix or in my experience so far in this course, because it's beautiful. And it certainly wasn't like done poorly. What you created is wow, it's just transformative. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm really touched and appreciating knowing how this is landing for you, and I would imagine other people, because that's what we want to offer. So thank you for affirming that.
It's sweet to take that in very much. And
Glad to hear
we're
it.
open to all of your feedback. So you can write to us in the classroom. It can be this kind of gratitude that we just heard from Jeannie. But also if you have any other kind of feedback, like, I hated it when you did this, or why would you do that? We're eager to hear about your unmet needs as well.
Yeah, lifelong learners.
Yeah, because for some of you, we might have done this terribly poorly. And we want to learn from that because maybe we can figure out how to create more life-serving strategies next time.
That was a little bit dramatic. It didn't have to be really poorly. Just we'd love to learn what else would have worked well so that we are continuing to learn as well.
Yeah. We have time for one more or two more. If anybody, that's who was just here.
Oh, that's okay.
If there's anybody else who would like to have the last word, go ahead, Isabel, our friend from Korea. Go ahead.
Hi, Jim. Hi, Jori. Thank you. I just want to honor, however, in spite of all this, the pull of the heavy feelings that we get triggered into, how difficult it is to pull out. And so we use these simple practices to learn the easy way. But in real life, when it's more than diapers, it's so hard to pull out. And for just recently, like yesterday, had difficulty pulling myself out of a feels like you're in a goo, stuck in it. Yes. And to wake out of it was so difficult. So I want to honor that in case others are also suffering.
Thank you. Yes.
I really appreciate you saying this, and because it really points to how important it is to have empathy buddies, to have partners that you meet with, maybe weekly, maybe every couple days, whatever works, but that we have someone that we get to talk to process through and find our ground when we've lost it a bit. So thank you so much for pointing that out. And you'll actually have that opportunity toward the end, within the next minute or two, to be able to meet in groups and maybe connect with someone who wants to be an empathy buddy with you.
Yeah, so Martha's going to open up the after party here. In the after party, it's optional. We won't be here, and Martha will be leaving too. But you guys can stick around as long as you like, and she'll be setting up some rooms where you can connect with each other. And you could either just kind of party a little bit, have a cup of tea together, celebrate your insights. Maybe you need some empathy about something that came up for you during the group. Maybe you want to find a buddy.
Yeah, that's the one. Find a buddy.
Then you can do that as well. And then until next week, when we start, we'll build the bridge from feelings to needs next week with more practice, and we will hopefully even more depth than we had today. It's going to be hard for me to beat today. The depth was really, really touching for me, and so I'm really glad that you all came. And yeah, I think I ran out of words. Amazing.
You ran out of words.
Yeah, so we'll see you all next week.